The last thing I got to say on the 250s is the Yamaha uniform they were wearing. I wasn't feeling it. The khaki and the blue, just yuck. It's hard to say if it was worse or better than Hayden Deegan last year in his DHL uniform. But I think I'd rather wear DHL. He is a man on a mission. You could see it in his eyes on the gate. There was something about the beginning, he wasn't getting his rhythm down and he was kind of choppy. I noticed that the lap before, and then the next lap goes by. My son liked it too. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to a 180 Block Pass, Round 5, Tampa, Florida. And we thought Glendale was great. Guys, we are just getting started. What a race. Historical race. Spoiler alert, Malcolm Stewart wins his first 450 main, and obviously his brother was calling it. So it was something to watch. Going through those whoops, holy crap, man. I went back to being in middle school and high school and seeing Ricky and Stewart duking it out, and Stewart just flying through the whoops. I'm telling you what, Stewart whoops are back. We will see what happens in the next race, but that was something else. Let me tell you what, I watched this race twice because the first time I watched it, I was like, I'm just going to enjoy the race. Because usually I take notes so I can explain what happened for these videos, obviously, right? And I was like, I'm just going to watch it and enjoy it, and we'll do the other stuff later. So I had to rewatch the race, and I'm so glad I did. So much happened so quickly, especially in the 450 main. I didn't even know what happened. I had questions about Ken Rozcen, and if the whole lapper situation didn't happen, would he be running for the points? What would have happened? And I couldn't remember. But before we get to the wow of the 450, we're going to go through the 250 class first and see what happened. So out of the gate, we had an unfamiliar name, Isaiah Clark, with the whole shot, but didn't last long. RJ Hampshire swooped in that first turn, leaving the pack. Shortly after, the line goes as follows. RJ obviously in front, Tom Vial right there in second, McAdoo with a torn ACL up there in third, Maximus Voland, which, fun story about him, he is using a handbrake. I guess it would be for the right side. I don't really know. Or if it's just like two levers. I really don't know. But he can't use his foot brake because he has nerve damage to his right foot. So he can't feel the lever when he uses the brakes. So he was up there in front and doing well in the heat race. And I think in the main, he ended up falling or riding off the track. Something happened with him. I'm pretty sure it was him because they interviewed him during the race. So he didn't make it all the way through. But the heat race, he was doing very well. And behind him, we had Nate Thrasher coming out swinging, Benedict, Neese, and Faulkner on the Triumph down there in 8th. So then we got 4 minutes and 15 seconds on the clock, and McAdoo passes Tom Viel, last year's champion, with a torn ACL, so he has something to show us this year. Faulkner goes down, somehow holds on, and before you know it, McAdoo's only 2 seconds down, and Tom is a whopping 7 seconds down from McAdoo. So by the end of Heat 1, we had Baby Eyes RJ Hampshire with first place, keeping that position, and 2, we had McAdoo, Tom Viel, Thrasher, who ended up passing Maximus, I guess somewhere in there, because Maximus is next, Benedict, Faulkner, Miller, and Munoz. M-U-N-O-S-O-Z, whatever. Munoz. The point of the matter is, he's on to the main. Second heat. So right out of the gate, we had Pierce Brown with the whole shot. Levi Kitchen doing well. They're in second. Chance Hymas in third. But before we know it, Chance goes down to 6th, leaving it Mumford, Park, and Austin there in 5th. Now we got 2 minutes and 15 seconds on the clock, and Austin has jumped up to 3rd place. The red flag is out, and now Pierce Brown, 8-second lead. Well, it's gone. I guess for him, the night gets worse, but we're not there yet. And let me just say, that red flag saved Kitchen's behind. How? I know how, but I don't know how. How in the world do you say the bike keeps stalling or it's not running good and your choke is on? As a rider, isn't that like the first thing you check? Be like, oh, did I forget to turn the fuel on? Oh, that was me. I always left the fuel on, or off, excuse me. So I'd be out there in the middle of 90-degree weather, full gear, obviously ran out of gas, carburetor bowl completely empty, in 90-degree weather in Georgia, middle of a field, just out there cranking and trying to crank this bike up that's got 0 fuel in it. But that's besides the point. If anything, it just shows you how much the riders rely on their team and the mechanic, because homeboy didn't know the choke was up. I know it's racing and you're in the moment, but I mean, just lean over and fix it. I don't know. Jeez, man. I guess there's plenty of times I bike would quit and I didn't know why, but I figured it out. Because look, where I come from, if you don't figure it out, you don't ride. Okay? You ain't got no mechanic. No. You learn how that bike works if you want to ride. If not, it becomes a garage ornament. I'm off my soapbox. Back to the race. So Pierce Brown obviously starts out in first. Mumford right behind him. Austin. Mumford attacks on the first turn and gets the pass. Quite aggressive. 20 seconds later, Austin passes Mumford. He tripled into the whoops, which seemed to be the fastest line of the race right there. Getting that momentum driving through. And on this, it says Austin, Brown, Chance, Hammaker, Levi Kitchen, Carson Mumford, Colin Parks. Anyway, so I didn't do LCQs for this round just because really nothing exciting happened. So we're going to go straight to the 250 main. Max Austin with a hole shot. Before you know it, we got 3 men in blue. Brown, Austin, and Benedict running up front. And then you had the Kawasaki team behind them with Hammaker and McAdoo. Chance behind McAdoo, Thomas, Hampshire, and Faulkner. Kitchen with a horrible start, apparently, and he's in 14th. So what I've been trying to tell you for the past 5 minutes is Levi Kitchen went down to the 13-minute marker. Something happened in the sand, went drifted off to the right. Whether it was a cross rut, I don't really know. But the moral of the story is he's down in the sand, and before you know it, he's in 14th position. And my son found my earring. He's not wearing a diaper. And he's gotten to the chocolate chewy granolas on my desk. So we should probably hurry this up. So as we all know, Brown goes down hard in the whoops, and actually injury update is that his T5 was broken. Well, that would be his spine. So not a good crash. So we got the restart. Austin's got the same intensity. He's looking good, leaving the pack. So according to this list, Max, Daxton Benedict, North Carolina rider, 19, pretty cool. Cameron McAdoo, 3rd, ACL, doesn't matter. Tear, don't care. Seth Hammaker, Tom VL, Chance Hymas pulling off 6. He's coming off of an ACL injury. And number 7, Colton Park. 8, Nate Thrasher. Levi Kitchen manages to get 9th. This was a terrible race for Levi Kitchen. I hope it gets better. Starts out, can't make it to the East because he's sick. First race, all over the place. So hopefully this is not the story of Levi Kitchen's 2025 series, which I don't think it will be, but we will see. Carson Mumford in 10th, Henry Miller, and that's enough. So obviously we had RJ Hampshire run into that jump off, go to the left, land right on that circle tough block. Bike is just stuck. I mean, they have flipped the tough block over, they have flipped the dirt bike over, they have flipped it again and again. Finally, he's using his knee to hold the thing up, starts the bike, and gets going, which ultimately, even with the staggered restart, he ends up in 17th. So, or excuse me, 18th. Austin Faulkner was in 17th, and he went down as well. So, hopefully, next couple races goes better for the 2 of those boys. The last thing I got to say on the 250s is the Yamaha uniform they were wearing. I wasn't feeling it. The khaki and the blue, just yuck. I didn't like it at all. It's hard to say if it was worse or better than Hayden Deegan last year in his DHL uniform. But I think I'd rather wear DHL and bright colors than just it. Bleh. Didn't like it. Anyway, 450s, let's get started. So out of the gate, we had Cooper Webb with a hole shot, Hunter Lawrence behind him, Jason Anderson in 3rd, but by the second turn, AP passed Jason. Hunter goes down before the first lap is even over, literally right there at the end of the first lap. He is out for the rest of the night, which leads us to have Webb, AP, and Jason with Justin Hill, but somehow Justin Hill, before we know it, is down in 7th. I don't know how. Does anybody know how? Because I don't know how. So Justin Barsha is now in 4th. Tomac is down there in 7th. Cooper Webb pretty much led the race. There wasn't much going on. There really wasn't much coverage. Barsha was riding very well, and the end results goes as follows. Cooper, Aaron, Jason, Barsha Hill, Justin Starling on the gas, Eli Tomac in 7th, Tristan Lane, and in that last spot, Jeremy Hand. So with Heat 2, there was a little bit more action. We had a new guy, Robbins, out there with the whole shot and running up there with the big dogs. He ended up crashing in the whoops, and he did not look like he wanted to get up. I feel like he could have got up a little bit quicker than he did. I'm not sure if he was hurt, and maybe that's why he was moving a little bit slower, but he was definitely at the bottom of the list by the end of the race. So that leads us with J. Coop, Oldenburg, Sexton in 3rd, McElrath in 4th, and somehow before we know it, Malcolm Stewart ends the night. He ended the night, that's for sure, but in this heat race, he ended up being 2nd position, flew by Justin Cooper like he was standing still through this whoops. I don't know what happened to the rest of the pack, but I do know that's what happened there. That leads us with the final results in Heat 2 as follows: Chase Sexton, Malcolm Stewart, Justin Cooper, Shane McElrath, Benny Bloss, Joey Savacci in 6th, Ken Roxon down in 7th, Holt Nichols in 8th, 9th, Mitchell Harris for that final spot. I did forget to mention that at the start, Kenny had a time there with the Beta Boys, and he was not happy about it, so he was dead last, so he's lucky that he didn't have to go to LCQ. He worked, well, he's not lucky, he did the work, and he got up there and just past everybody. And this leads us to the 450 main. If you don't have time to watch any of the races, fine. Just skip to the 450 main because it was something to see. It is one for the books. I'm probably going to watch it again for the 3rd time. It was that good. So we had Chase Sexton with the whole shot, Justin Cooper behind him, Anderson, Roxon in 4th, McElrath 5th, Barsha in 6th, AP in 7th, Malcolm Stewart behind him on 8th slot. So Malcolm Stewart is 8th right now. The beginning of the race, gate dropped. Malcolm Stewart is in 8th place with some top guys in front of him. Savacci 9th, Webb in 10th, and then we had Tomac all the way there at the bottom. Jason Anderson passed Justin Cooper, and let me just say, those whoops are killing this kid. Like, he is fast. He's getting starts. He's there. And the whoops, man, are just annihilating him. And everyone talks about that he jumps through them instead of skims them, so he's going to have to work on that if he wants to be on the top, because I think he could be on the top. If he fixed that, he would be on the top. His name has been up there. He is a consistent rider. Yes, granted, he's been in the LCQ, but it was nothing to him. So, I don't know. Something's got to give. Maybe this year's just not his year. I don't know. Time will tell. Right after that, Ken Roxon passes him quite aggressively. I mean, he goes around that turn and he just hits the gas and his bike's just like, and he's gone. Like, he is a man on a mission. You could see it in his eyes on the gate. Like how last week I said Cooper had this look in his eyes. This week, Ken Roxon had that look in his eyes. But fate was not on his side for this race by any means. So it's only been 3 minutes and Malcolm Stewart has found himself in 5th place, passing Aaron Plessinger, Barsha, and McElrath. Aaron Plessinger staying in 9th. So Aaron Plessinger and Malcolm Stewart, like I said last week, they were on the same playing field. But this week they were not on the playground together because Malcolm Stewart said, I'm going to go hang out with the big kids. You stay here. And that's what happened. And I said he's a step ahead of Aaron Plessinger, and he showed me he was a few levels ahead. And then with 16 minutes on the clock, we had Jason Anderson and Roxon going for a good battle. And one thing I want to note is Roxon made me nervous because he qualified in 8th. I think he was 8th. And I said, oh no, what's wrong? But now seeing the race, it seems like maybe he was not so concerned with the fast lap and he was more concerned with really learning the track and maybe finding lines that other people weren't finding than just being technical, worrying about not falling, which obviously he didn't. He had a huge crash. He had a couple crashes, but they weren't his fault and he was very frustrated. Like, he might come out swinging hard round 6. He was frustrated. I mean, he was kicking that wheel off. He was saying, what the heck, guys? I mean, Kenny is back. He was on fire and ready to ride. So this weekend, I'm thinking he's going to be coming out swinging hard. He has to. He has to at this point. He's got to get some first places. So now Malcolm Stewart is hunting down Jason Anderson, passes him, and right after he passes him, Cooper Webb passed Jason as well. This whole time, Chase Sexton has been in the front, but camera hasn't been on him. I don't know what it is about when he leads. There's just so much stuff going on behind him. He gets zero camera time. If that would have been Jet or Hayden, maybe even Tomac, eyes on, whole race. Wouldn't even know what happened behind us. So now we got 11 minutes to go, and Malcolm Stewart has worked his way up to Ken Rozcen, who was riding in second, had his eyes set on Chase Sexton. I did notice after the second time I watched this race, and knowing where that whole accident happened with Ken Rozcen and just the lappers, I was like, looking at the screen more intently at the lappers, and I was like, man, they are all over the place, and they really were. But Malcolm Stewart is doing Stewart whoops this race and ends up catching up to Ken Rozcen through the whoops and passing him on the turn after. Rozcen's trying to work his way back up, 8 minutes roughly. Rozcen's trying to get past the lappers, and that's when we had that catastrophic catapult. And if you look, one of the guys that he hit, I guess it was the guy on the right, because Rozcen went left, started to bounce right, and the guy that was on the right saw him. And if you watch, he has his bike up, and he's like turning his wheel to try to avoid him, like move a little bit out of the way. He does end up moving out of the way, but he's falling off, and he catches Ken Rozcen's handlebars on his way down, and his arm just right here catches the handlebars. And oh man, I didn't notice it. Actually, my husband noticed it, and then I rewatched the replay and was like, oh my goodness. And then Ken Rozcen, he got his head hit a little bit, but it could have been way worse. He was up, he was going to go, and I bet you in that moment in time, he was just like, this freaking kickstart, this freaking kickstart, this freaking kickstart, and the chain's not on. And we all know that the gypsy tail thing was going to come back and haunt him about the chain tightening thing. And he was right. He should have kept his mouth shut, because his chain is off, and he ain't putting it back on. Not that he could without tools anyway, but the point of the matter is that was just weird. And you know, all the media people are having a heyday with that one. Another thing I noticed is pretty much right after the crash and everyone's on the ground, Jason Anderson goes by, and you see him look to the right, trying to make sure that Ken Rozcen is still alive, because he probably saw the whole thing happen. And he did look, and he saw, I'm sure, who was on the ground, and he just kept going. But I was like, oh, wow, that was nice of him. He was like, oh man, no, someone's hurt. That's not good. I could feel it. And because of this, like, this sucks, because I couldn't remember where Ken was during the whole race, but most of the race, he was in the front, and he had his eyes set on Chase. And he might have, obviously Malcolm was doing Stewart stuff, but if Malcolm wasn't there and he didn't wreck, he might have caught up to Chase as well, and he might have took it home. I don't think he'd have took it like Malcolm did. I know Chase wrecked, but Malcolm had it either way. He was gone. But we're not there yet. We're getting there. But even if he didn't wreck, he for sure would have had third. Chase Sexton would have been behind him, especially if he wrecked like he did. And he might have got the plate back again. I don't know. Someone's going to have to do the math. But I think Ken Rozcen might have had the red plate back, because he would have been in front of Chase. I mean, he's 18 points down now because of that race. So if he really wants it this season, he's going to have to get, and I mean, this might be the season to do it. Like, you're going to have to go after it. And he's been riding well. So this next race I keep saying the next race is going to be a telltale sign of everything, but you can't even call it. You can't call it. It's just crazy. That leads us to our man Tomac down in 17th place. Not feeling good during this race, because there's no beast mode. It's turned off. I've had a 250, and I was not good at cranking a 4-stroke, and the bike was way too tall for me. It was like the 06 RMZ 250. It was the year you couldn't get a lowering link for it or nothing. And I had to lean it against something to be able to crank it. And it was just a pain. And I'm sure it needed to be shimmed and everything else. But I had that Kickstarter come back and hit me in the cab. Holy crap, that hurt so bad. I had a bruise like this big. I'll see if I can find a picture. But I'm sure that's what the back of Eli's calf looked like, if not worse, because Peg, as the motorcycle's going up a jump, doesn't sound good. Now we're getting to the part everybody wants to talk about. Malcolm Stewart passing Chase Sexton in the whoops. But before we get there, let's go to the lap before. I noticed Chase Sexton was having problems in the whoops. It wasn't as bad as it got after the wreck, but it was not smooth. There was something about the beginning, he wasn't getting his rhythm down, and he was kind of choppy. I noticed that the lap before, and then the next lap goes by, and Malcolm Stewart, whether Chase crashed or not, he was gone. It's a miracle that his bike, like he's done with the whoops. Chase's bike is over here, and he's able to go around. So that in itself was great. And then it was just holding on for the rest of the race. And obviously, very emotional, very awesome. Loved every bit of it. My son liked it too. So great race. Can't wait till next week. We'll see you guys next week in Detroit at the races.